Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, viewers. I hope you're enjoying our discussions on the topic of the Quran and the puzzle of life. I'm enjoying it, and I hope Shariq is enjoying it too. Let's ask Shariq what else is there in his mind that needs to be discussed for the puzzle to be solved.
I think the real question is, where should we start? I wanted to ask about how to apply the Quran, but first let's talk about this. I would say there's a growing number of disillusioned people who would say, is this fair that I'm expected to solve this puzzle? Do I really need to solve the puzzle? What do you think about this?
You know, the Quran tells us that before we came to this life, we were actually given the option, and we opted to take the challenge, take up the challenge. The Quran says that we presented the trust being the freedom that we have got with us, the responsibility that we have taken up, to the heavens and the earth and the mountains. They all refused, and they were fearful, scared. And humans, they took up the challenge, and they were emotional, they exaggerated, but that's how it is. So that really means, obviously the obvious question is that we don't remember that.
Yeah.
The answer is that quite often it so happens that we have gone through a certain experience, we don't retain the memory of it, but the essence is there. So each human has this strong urge to move ahead, to succeed, to explore, and to solve the puzzle of this life. If there are people out there who are too dejected or unwilling, well, it's because of the fact that they did not face their circumstances properly, but they should be encouraged. There is a solution to the problem, to every problem, intellectual solution. And, I think it's fair on the part of the Almighty to expect us to solve this puzzle.
Right, and that would go back to the individual experience, that the individual test, rather, that each person will have, right?
We all have different personalities and therefore different tastes and inclinations. So I might have been inclined to look for the solution because of my father's demise. Somebody else might be inclined because of her philosophical approach towards life. There could be people who could look at the misery that is there in some part of the world, and that might incline them to look for solutions. So there's no hard and fast rule that would apply to all humans alike. This diversity in itself is brilliant, and each individual has his own way of trying to look for solutions to the puzzle.
So let's say you were encouraging someone to look for the solutions. Where would they start?
I look at the person, I look at his problems, I look at his interests, I'll see if he is really interested or not in knowing what the truth of this life is. And if I find that he's not interested, then I'll try to help him realize that this life is not as good as he thinks is to be so much obsessed about.
Can take time to realize
something like that. I'll probably mention a few incidents that he might have gone through, or his close ones. Maybe I'll talk about some people whom he knew before and if they've passed away and so on. There are different ways of letting people be more interested and inclined to know the truth. But you know what? Maybe if I talk to people, and some of them are not interested while I'm talking to them, but some part of what I say gets into their ears, maybe later when they actually have those kind of experiences, accidents, they might actually look back and think that, oh my goodness, he was making some sense. And now I'm I'm really more interested in looking for the truth.
I would actually guarantee you that they would, because it's something that I've definitely experienced.
Oh.
Things from 10 years before, that information all comes back to you. So you're almost planting seeds.
Yeah,
is
that's
what
right.
you want to start.
Yeah, that's the right expression. Yeah, that's right.
Sometimes someone is not ready, often young people, right? Wouldn't you say? There's a lot of distractions nowadays in the world.
That's why it said that, don't talk to a person about these serious matters of life when he is overindulged in something that is exciting him immediately. Look for the right opportunity.
So, and that's somebody who's looking for the puzzle of life, the answer to the puzzle of life. What about somebody who has solved it in another way? I know we touched on this briefly, but let's talk about people of the book specifically. If they follow and practice their religion and they believe that they have it solved, would you say it's more beneficial to convert them and to tell them that, hey, this is a better, even more comprehensive way to solve that puzzle?
That's a very important question. If you look at the whole idea of the puzzle, one important consequence of understanding that puzzle is that whenever you're going to talk to somebody who has different views from yours, you will talk very politely. You will not hurt the feelings of others. Although it's going to be difficult, but really this is something that we need to master. I know, for example, that your views are different from mine, very different. But then I'm interested in you. And therefore, I will start approaching you by telling you that, look here, let's have a shared experience of trying to unfold the mystery of this life and solve it. And I think I will just inform the other person about my understanding of what the truth is and how the puzzle is solved. I'll probably most certainly I'll introduce him to the Quran without challenging his belief system, and would say that, let's compare it. I think what I'll most certainly say to the person, each person I'm going to talk to, if the other person cares to listen to me, that look here, we cannot afford to fool ourselves. If there is an ultimate truth to this life, it has to be one. There can't be two conflicting truths. And if at some stage my Christian friend allows me the luxury, I'll say to him that, look here, it's either that Jesus was actually the Son of God or he was not. The two different approaches, opinions cannot go together. He was or he was not. And I'll tell him that, look here, there's as much of a possibility that he was as probability that he was not. Your faith says he was. My faith says he most certainly wasn't. So now what's the solution? To claim that mine is correct and yours is wrong, I mean, that would be silly. I mean, what do you mean? You were accidentally born into the right faith and I was accidentally born into the wrong one.
It's a good way to start an argument.
So we'll start an argument, but I don't want it to be a heated debate. I want it to be as polite as possible so that we are probably talking less and thinking more when we finish a certain session. And we are both forced to keep thinking about our respective positions. I think that's what ideally I would like everybody to get involved in.
So it's the important thing is to actually care first.
Yes.
Care about life and
That's
care
the
about
key.
its mysteries, to be invested.
That's the key. To care about this life and solving the puzzle, and to be extremely sympathetic towards other individuals. If you don't have that sympathy, that concern, you'll not be able to do a good job talking to others.
So let's take the Quran again as our example, as the key to solving this puzzle. Now, even within Islam, we have different sects. How would you address that? Are they all solving the puzzle in their own ways, or?
They are and they are not. They are solving the puzzle in the sense that, all Muslims, almost all, they have basically the same understanding about God, the life hereafter, and the Prophet. I'm talking about the basic understanding. When you go into the details, most certainly there are differences, serious differences. But, if you ask me what the reasons are for them to be disagreeing, you might call it oversimplistic, but the answer is very simple. It's because they are not giving the Quran the status that it deserves. We all Muslims must surrender unconditionally to the Quran to ask what exactly is the text saying and asking us to believe in and to do.
So the differences don't, sorry for interrupting, the differences don't necessarily, they aren't derived from the text itself.
It's because the text is read by people who already have views formed from elsewhere.
Okay.
So some people have hadith literature
Cultural.
influencing them. Some people have their imams, their scholars, their cultures influencing them. And the Quran is relegated to a secondary position. So when they read the Quran, they already know what they believe in. They've already decided what's right and what is wrong. The Quran is, allow me to say, used as a text to provide with supporting arguments for what they already believe in. Now that's, allow me to say, is an insult.
Well, wouldn't you say the Quran is, would you say the Quran is easy to understand?
If you do not have preconceived ideas.
So if you come in as a blank slate?
Oh yes, I mean,
Yeah.
It is easy and it has challenges. But those challenges are there to make you get involved more deeply.
Read again.
Yeah.
Go
I
deeper.
mean, otherwise, one reading would have sufficed. But I can tell you, maybe I've read the Quran more than 100 times, and I
Really?
still read and I don't get bored. You know why? Because it has layers after layers, and the puzzle of life is also pretty deep and complex. And each time I read the Quran, it promises to solve it even further than what I had solved earlier. But as I said, the condition is that you do not have any other source influencing you more than the Quran. Other sources, I'm not denying them. But what I'm saying is that they are all secondary to the Quran. Everything else should be seen as a footnote to the Quran, if at all they carry any value.
Seems like a difficult thing to not look towards the religious authorities in your country or state, wherever you may live, for guidance the same way you would look to a doctor for medical advice or something like this. Do you get what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying,
Like
but
you want a professional, someone who's spent, like you've read the Quran 100 times, you said a lot of people might not have the time or patience or reading ability to do that, right?
each time you read the Quran, you should tell yourself before you go into it, I want to know what God says. So, I mean, if there is a trained scholar, very impressive, I don't care. I would care, but insofar as he is helping me in understanding the text. Now, if you ask me, what exactly are you talking about? I'll tell you, there's a certain verse. I mean, for instance, there is this starting 3 letters, Alif Lam Mim, in the second surah, Surah Al-Baqarah. And we have the same letters, Alif Lam Mim, starting the 3rd surah. Not the 4th one, not the 1st one. I'll have this question, oh God, why did you do it? Now, here comes a scholar and he says that this is the explanation. I'll say, oh goodness me. I'll think about it. It's not making sense. A second explanation. And a third one would say, oh my God, I mean, this is brilliant. I've got it. So, you know, if you are objective and you've made it a point that you really want to understand, Shariq, you will get it.
I agree with that. Easier said than done, though.
Yeah,
Being objective, right?
But the test should not be quite as easy to make it boring or over simple.
Yeah, I definitely agree that it can't be easy.
Yeah, yeah.
In fact, it should be maybe one of the hardest things in a way, right?
It's easy as well as difficult.
Yeah. So would you say that you yourself have solved this puzzle then? Because it seems like you understand the Quran and you've read it many times. You say yes?
Yeah, to a good extent, yes.
So maybe there's a few little pieces missing here and there, but most of it is put together.
That's why I still am interested.
Yeah.
Otherwise, probably I would have given up reading the Quran. So I don't want the puzzle to be completely solved before I leave this world. So, you know, it should keep me interested in reading the book.
So you're still curious, you still want to know more, but would you say you've found a level of peace with everything that you have managed to put together so far?
This is interesting. You know, intellectually, yes. But practically, you know what? I'm a weak human. I have my desires, I have my ego. Every day, I disappoint myself. I know what the right thing is, the right thing to do is. But you know what? The wrong things, the wrong way is attractive. It distracts you. So, on the one hand, although I am at peace, on the other, I am not. And this struggle is going on. I know it's never going to end. But I would want to end my journey of life, my innings, in a way that the good part of me has dominated over, has subjugated the evil one.
So it's always going to be a journey of self-improvement, no matter what.
It is. It's an ongoing journey. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
I am curious. We talked about the fragmentation within Islam and in between the people of the book as well, and it seems like they can often be very tribalistic. My team versus your team.
Yeah.
And even violent at times. So they're definitely not everybody within the fold has found peace. So what would you say about those people?
You know what? If you decide that you'll not use your own God-given intellect and your ability to be critical and would just blindly follow an individual or a group of people, you are in trouble. That's what has happened in the case of most religious groups. There are a few expressions, terms, which if they are not properly defined and understood, they can cause trouble. I give you two examples. Kafir, jihad. I mean, these two expressions, I believe, that have been misunderstood, incorrectly interpreted by a large number of Muslims. And here you are. People consider non-Muslims, all of them kafirs. And the Quran is absolutely clear that a kafir is a person who is worse than beasts. It is a Quranic statement. Now imagine that Muslims considering non-Muslims as kafirs, in other words, worse than beasts. What's going on? It's an incorrect conclusion that non-Muslims are kafirs. A kafir is a person, if you read the Quran carefully, even if you don't know the Arabic, a kafir is a person who knows what the truth from God is. He knows it. And yet he rejects it arrogantly and goes on to oppose it for all throughout his life. Quite obviously, he has to be an evil person and very understandably despised by the Almighty. But not a poor person who is a non-Muslim for no fault of his. He's trying and struggling to know the truth, my presentation of Islam doesn't impress him, there could be several justifiable reasons, he's not a kafir. Likewise, the expression jihad, jihad is considered a holy war which no matter when and where, if Muslims undertake against non-Muslims, it's going to be jihad. Not at all. It has certain conditions. It has certain reasons why it should be undertaken. And most certainly, whenever a jihad is going to take place, we can justify it morally to everybody. But alas, this is something which not many Muslims understand.
I mean, most of these problems seem to just stem from a lack of understanding of these things.
And in turn, that lack of understanding is because people are not reading the text critically, not doubting the statements of the scholars. Every individual has been given a taste by the Almighty, which if he values, he would not feel comfortable with a wrong interpretation. So, it's an ongoing process. You'll keep seeking.
Yeah.
You'll keep asking.
Sounds like there's a lot of work to be done.
Oh, yes, indeed. That's right.
And we have a lot more work to do too, but I believe we are out of time for this episode.
I hope that in these 4 episodes we have done enough to create some interest in the viewers regarding this question, and I hope that you all agree that there is a puzzle of life, and there is at least some promise in the Quran that this puzzle can be solved. Thank you very much for patiently listening to us, and we hope that we'll find more opportunities to talk about this subject or some other similar subjects.
Hopefully soon.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.